All right, the recording is started. So good morning, everybody. To get started on this remote meeting, I want to go over a couple logistics as usual. As I noted, the meeting is being recorded. We'll post that to the Office of Open Government website. Throughout the meeting, I'd ask advisory group members to mute themselves unless you wish to speak to keep down the background noise. I don't know if we have any members of the public listening in today, but we don't have a provision for comments by members of the public. It's just available for listening. And if something goes wrong with the technology here today, I apologize, and we'll just have to end the meeting if I can't figure out a fairly quick technical solution. So with that, let me turn to just get a roll call of the advisory group members that are on the meeting, and then any or visiting attendees from different offices. So starting off down the list is Donald Brayman on the call. All right, I don't see Don in the queue. Paul Butler. Let's see, Paul. Renata Cooper. Don't believe Renata's on. Helder Gill. Helder's not on. Laura Hankins.
Here.
That sounded enthusiastic. Thank you, Laura. Dave
Here and
Rosenthal.
happy to be here. So glad to not see everyone, but to not hear your voices either.
All right, Dave Rosenthal.
Here.
Great, excellent. And Kevin Whitfield.
I'm as well.
Great. Okay, and I think a few visiting attendees from some of the offices. Seema Gejwani.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Nishant Kirkat.
Here, good morning.
Good morning. And Katya Seminova.
Hi, everyone.
All right, and CCRC staff is also on the call, Janu and others. Oh, and I believe Dawn has joined us as well. So
And Ilana's here too.
Hey, sorry I was late.
No worries. And I'm sorry, who else joined on?
Ilana Suttenberg. Hi.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Ilana, there's like a little space I had written down my sheet, and then you were next. So I would have caught it, but thank you. I apologize for not.
That's fine.
I mentioned you. All right. Okay. So good. Just a couple announcements. It may end up being another very short meeting. We'll see. But on announcements, first, as I emailed you all earlier this week, one of our staff members, Gabrielle Green, who joined us earlier this year, resigned from her position in August, just a couple weeks ago. And we'll miss her, but rather for an attorney to fill the vacancy, the agency is conducting a search for a social scientist, someone who can help, particularly with review of social science literature that's relevant to our recommendations and kind of future work, and also to help with data analysis. And yeah, so we're very identify applicants. We would love to get somebody started in October, but that's a short timeline, so we need your help. So if you could forward to any of your networks, anybody, any individuals you know or organizations, the job vacancy that I sent via email earlier this week, I'd very much appreciate it. And again, we hope to move very quickly on that hiring, and, but also very important to get somebody who's well suited. Second announcement, in terms of workflow, I wanted you to know that, so our next meeting is October 7th. And our plan is to, before then, it'll probably be around the end of this month of September, maybe first couple days into October. We do plan to issue a new batch of reports. This will be recommendations for a smattering of offenses, new offenses that we haven't previously revised. And also, we hope most or all the remaining general defenses that we plan to propose for codifying. So self-defense being front and center, but several others as well. And so that will be up for, hopefully be circulated and up for discussion, excuse me, at the October meeting. I expect everybody will have, at least a month, but probably more like around 6 weeks for written comments on that material. And meanwhile, staff is continuing to also work on a kind of a comprehensive, again, across the board update to recommendations that will address all the comments we receive from you. And we're aiming to release that kind of big across the board update around the new year. So that's our main target, and hopefully we'll be able to meet that. As I mentioned at the last meeting, in this interim lull, I would, while you don't have kind of new material being in front of you for review, I'd really appreciate if any members or agencies want to take a step back and kind of review overall for the recommendations, where they stand, what is most important, what needs the most work, and contact me to set up a time to talk about that. I really appreciate hearing your kind of at end stage here what your top level priorities and concerns are. Obviously we can't promise to address them favorably, but we will do our best to address them one way or another. And time is running out, right? We're given the council's change to our statute, we now have an extension to March 30th, but that's just 7 months from now. So we're definitely trying to focus in on remaining issues with what we have generated to try to get out some new work on general defenses and a few various offenses, but with an eye very much to finalizing the recommendations to go to the council and mayor early next year. So that's where we are staff-wise, and kind of what to expect in the coming month or so. And I believe that's it for all the announcements I had. So let me go ahead and turn to the agenda item, the only one on the agenda today, the advisory group memo number 38. This was circulated a while back, and I just wanted to flag a few things before opening up to questions. So big picture, the main difference of this memo 38 and its spreadsheet and the prior memo 28, which was about a year ago, is first and foremost the addition of data for 2019. And with that additional data, the spreadsheet and then in the PDF of that is attached to the memo, there are different breakouts for the years, right? So it predominantly focuses, and I think in many respects the most useful is the 10-year span covering 2010 to 2019. Okay, that's our largest one. We didn't include 2009 with that for a number of reasons. It's older. There's some more data or potential data issues, quality issues with 2009 data, and 10 is a good number. It's kind of easier to infer, what yearly averages are and kind of break that out. So that's the largest grouping. but there are also further breakouts, including one for just 2019 data. And the other new piece in the Memo 38 is we try to do some additional analysis regarding consecutive and concurrent sentencing. And I think I mentioned this before, but it's limited what we can infer from that. One major hitch that we encountered and kind of grappled with some of the court staff about how to proceed was that the court has a quality assurance process that is automated to kind of flag problems after court records are updated with the disposition, and there's like a 72-hour period after imposition sentence that there's that window, and this kind of the court's own kind of automated quality assurance does its best to, again, catch any kind of straight up clerical errors. That analysis does not include review of blanks in consecutive concurrent sentencing. So normally that is a field that shows up for clerks to enter the sentencing information, but if it is left blank, it is either through a clerical error or deliberately, it is interpreted by the court as being a consecutive sentence. And so we had to go back and kind of rework some of our analyses to include that assumption. As a data or record keeping matter, is as per law, right? Like if the judge is silent, that is also as a matter of law construed as a consecutive sentence under the Title 23, whatever it is, 101 provision. So there's that kink in there. Some other just straight up data quality issues with consecutive concurrent sentencing. They're detailed further in the report in the memo from our contractor, who kind of describes how these kinds of relationships, it's just very complex how they're set up, particularly when there are multiple judges in a case, or in some sense, or in some instances, references to consecutive concurrent sentencing between cases. There's just a lot of assumptions that had to be made because of incomplete, or in some instances contradictory data about consecutive concurrent sentencing. We did our best to sort through that, working with the contractor. The court kind of reviewed what we did. We tried to adjust our analysis to what they asked us to do, and they saw a copy of what you received. So it's the best we can kind of do, but there are a lot of caveats, I would say, still to keep in mind on consecutive concurrent sentencing. The good news is we may be able to resolve some of that going forward. We have requested court data for not as this in Memo 38 and our prior Memo 28 both took kind of first in time sentencing dispositions. So what was kind of first recorded by the court for a sentence, but we've requested a couple other later in time data points. So one that would look at the 72 hour after initial imposition, and that will hopefully give us a chance to weed out some of the, again, straight clerical errors that are caught by the court's quality assurance process, as well as a data slice that looks at the last in time entry for the disposition. Now, there are some pros and cons to doing first in time versus last in time versus the 72-hour mark. We don't know for sure how significant these data slices will be. but changes based on appeals, some other changes in disposition, sealing could affect what appears and how it appears at a later point in time. So we're just going to do our best to take these different slices, and we'll see how much variation there is. I do hope, though, that some of the later in time sentencing will take care of what appear to be straight up clerical errors, right? Of what otherwise appear to be illegal sentences that were corrected, and hopefully in a timely manner, but still appear and kind of can skew the data that is in the first in time data set that was used for what you have before you. All right, so I hope that isn't too in the weeds, but I'm also happy to go into the weeds. So let me kind of open this up again. I am not myself a data scientist. Dawn on the phone is probably the closest I think we might have in this group to a person in that zone, but this data set is very complicated. Again, our contractor is has a PhD from Princeton, had worked with this particular data for years from the court, and still encountered a number of challenges. So it's tricky stuff. I'll try to do the best I can to answer any questions about the details, but I may also just have to listen, note it, and confer with our contractor to then get back to you all at a later date with an answer. But yeah, I know you all have seen, again, some numbers similar to this before from our prior, the statistics in Memo 28, but does anybody have questions you all want to raise about anything you saw in Memo 38?
This is Ilana. I have two questions that you have probably already answered or that are in some disclaimers about the data somewhere that I'm just not aware of. First question, if it's an attempt, is it listed as the completed offense? Like if we charge an attempt?
Well, yes. So attempts are included in here, both, and there's some columns again. So one, if you're looking at the spreadsheet, there are a number of hidden columns because otherwise I was trying to pick out, and highlight the most important. But if you select columns, right-click. If you're at your computer to unhide, you'll see other things. And some of the breakouts include breakouts by attempt versus non-attempt. But those splits and attempts to kind of break out the data still, any conviction, even if it was an attempt, will show up in the row under that citation, that micro citation. The finest grain unit we have in column A is what we call the micro citation, and these are essentially the court codes that were used, right? And they don't distinguish, so it's by the citation, not by whether it was an attempt or a solicitation, or solicitation would be separate, but it doesn't say, for instance, conspiracy, right? Those aren't distinguished. We have no way, unless the separate little flag for a particular charge or marks it as being an attempt to tell. So does that hopefully address your question? So yeah, attempts are in there, and some of these columns are going to break that out in a way that you might find useful. Yeah.
And my second question, in terms of when there's multiple charges, if you have an assault and a threat, does it list them under both charges? Would you get one assault and one threat, or is it just the lead charge? Once again, you probably already answered that question and I just forget.
No, great. It's a good question, right? So it will list both separately. So, right, if in a case the charges brought a simple assault and a threat of bodily harm, you're going to see a charge number for both. Obviously, maybe there aren't convictions for both, So the conviction data you see, you know, might not have anything there. But yes, this is broken out by charge, not by case.
Got it. So if you have the assault and the threats, then and you're just plead to an assault or something, then it would just lift a conviction for the assault and no conviction for the threats.
That's right. If that was dropped, or yes, for any reason after initial charging, it would just, yes, you would see nothing then for the threats in that hypothetical.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. And I would note too that like this is a big difference between the data here and any comparison to you know, a lot of the statistics that are reported out at a national level, or even from MPD, right? So often the lead charge, right, is kind of all that is captured in statistics. You know, one of the documents I flagged before and I've sent to y'all, but I think is very interesting and informative is the Bureau of Justice Statistics, again, did this study on state time served in state prisons. So it's looking at the state level at, again, kind of actual time served before release. And so it gives kind of, goes to the very end to kind of get a sense of how parole's effectively, you know, changing sentences and in a lot of jurisdictions. That document, which previously sent, again, it's working off of the lead charges only. And that's, again, very typical for a lot of the analyses that you see, particularly by Bureau of Justice